Nice. Okay. So, hi everyone. It's an absolute pleasure being here among you and having the pleasure to teach you about coding and the basics of website development. This course is for absolute beginners and is suitable for those who are just starting to code. All the sessions will be recorded and will be shared with you after the class on the course platform. If at any point you had questions, please feel free to add it to the chat and I'll answer them during or after I'm done with the presentation. Perfect, just checking the chat here, making sure that it's visible to me. As part of the teaching session, I'll post resources for you to read or watch before you attend the class. So I really appreciate if you can please complete them. For example, for this session, I posted a video that I hope you watched. And there was links for you to download a Visual Studio Code and also Google Chrome or Firefox, the browsers. I'm sure you have one of those browsers in your computer already, but just making sure that if you have any of the browsers, that's fine too. I day-to-day use mostly Firefox and sometimes Google Chrome and sometimes Safari, but mostly I'm using Firefox. Just making sure, and please check your emails continuously and make sure that if there is any reading or a video to watch or something to do, that you do before the session starts. And one more thing, after each class, you will have assignments that you need to complete. It's very important for you to practice. And those assignments will help you to do that. And when you do that, when you submit your assignments, I will receive them, I'll be able to review them. And there is also an option that you can share with other, your fellow friends in the course so that others can see them as well. If you want to keep it private, you may not want to share with them and only with me. For this, after this class, you will have 2 assignments that you need to complete. And if you have checked the course platform that you logged in there, you definitely see that there. And if you had any questions, okay. If you had any questions, then of course you can ask after the class, or email me, or you may have some time at the end for question and answers. And including for the class questions, you can have so many questions that you may have regarding the course platform. I will be able to answer. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Introduction to Coding for Absolute Beginners. You all know about the course name. Let's go to the next session. A little bit about me. I have more than I think 12, if I counted, really 12 years of experience being a software developer, being part of amazing teams, companies, launched a couple of products, also had some companies that I co-founded and worked with, and had that experience working in different countries, including Afghanistan, Turkey, Malta, Canada, and UK. I've experienced mostly with open source platforms, but I've been building web applications and websites in a variety of languages. And I've also extensively taught about web application development and website design and product management in various public or private institutions. I have my bachelor's from Turkey and my master's from the UK, and that's a little about me. I have my blog, and you can also check about us on codeweekend.net, which is especially like a platform for myself and my colleagues, who we organize coding bootcamps for people who want to really take the coding path seriously and want to be web developers or software engineers. Okay, I think that's enough. Today's agenda is first, we're going to do a little introduction to web foundations. We will know what the web is, what the internet is, how they work. We also gonna speak a little bit about the history of the web and the different components of the web. We will learn about web browsers and web servers. And then towards the end, we will go a little deeper with HTML, and we will do some practice. I'll share my screen. We will do some like simple page. We will learn more about what HTML is and how things work. So today will be kind of like more about foundations. And after covering the foundations, so for the next sessions, we will put more things on top of them, and then we will learn about CSS and JavaScript and things that will add up to what we're gonna cover today. So if for some of you these topics are new, which is, that will be great for you to like really pay attention. For some of you, you may know some of these concepts, but may need a little refresher and polishing, I think, which will be, I think, great and will benefit you a lot. Okay, so let's go ahead and learn about internet. So as I said, before we go into the web, let's start going through what internet is. Internet is a global network of interconnected computers and servers that communicate with each other using some standard communication protocols. So you can kind of think of a network of computers means when like more than one computers, when they are connected, you can call them internet. Internet is basically like a network, right? When more than two computers are connected, you can basically call them internet. But fundamentally, you can do that, but there's also some standards on how, for example, these two computers communicate with each other, which not every connected computers may not have that. So that's why when we talk about the internet, we say internet is, in its own definition, a global network of interconnected computers and servers that communicate with each other using standard communication protocols. It allows people and devices from all over the world to connect and share information in real time. So when you go to TikTok and watch something, and Instagram and post something, or in Twitter, share something, it all happens through on top of internet. When you send an email, it happens on top of internet using the infrastructure and the facilities that the internet provides. The internet was initially developed in the late 1960s and early 1970s by the United States Department of Defense to facilitate communication between researchers and academics. Today, the internet is a wide range of used in a wide range of purposes, including communication, commerce, education, entertainment, research, and more. So now that we covered internet, think of like the big, like if you draw a big circle, you know, when we cover the big circle, inside that big circle, there is kind of bigger circle, but not fully big as the biggest one. And there is web. So web is part of internet. We'll come back to in a couple of slides. I will explain what all the differences are, but internet is like the bigger circle and web is part of internet. Okay, so World Wide Web, or web, which we access through web browsers, is one of the most popular and widely used services on the internet, and allows users to access and share information through websites and web applications. The web is a vast network of computers that are connected to each other via internet. So again, because there is internet, there is the web. These computers are called servers, and they store and provide access to websites, which are a collection of web pages that are linked together. So basically, when we talk about the network element of the web, it is these connected servers that share information between each other, which I'll explain further shortly. I'm just making sure that I'm not missing anything. And now we're gonna go a little bit further into the history of the web. Web, or World Wide Web, which is commonly referred as the web, was invented by Tim Berners-Lee, a British computer scientist, while he was working at CERN in Switzerland in 1989. At that time, scientists and researchers used different computer systems and communication protocols, making it difficult to share information and collaborate effectively. That was the problem of that time. So Berners-Lee proposed the concept of a global hypertext system that would enable the sharing and accessing of information over the internet using standardized protocols. So because of the need that was there, then he developed the first web browser called World Wide Web. We have now Safari, Firefox, Chrome. What he did was back then creating World Wide Web browser and the first web server, and he did it in 1990. This allowed users to create and access web pages using a simple interface. And then in 1993, CERN released the World Wide Web technology to the public, which there's also a little information there that CERN initially was hesitant on sharing this publicly. And Tim Berners-Lee says that if that project was kept private, as was not shared publicly, probably today we wouldn't have internet in this scale. And because it was then shared publicly with this code and everything, then a lot of people start contributing and working together, and the growth happened. The web then quickly gained popularity, and by mid-1990s, it became a global phenomenon. In the early 2000s, the web underwent a significant transformation with the introduction of Web 2.0. So there is one like Web 1.0, and then there is Web 2.0, which I'll in the next coming slide I'll explain more. Which as part of Web 2.0, we got social media, blogs, web applications, and other tools and applications for communication, entertainment, and commerce. And as you can see here in the slide, that's Tim Berners-Lee when he was at CERN. And on the left, it's very amazing that I saw this page again. This is the first published web page. And it is still hosted under CERN's website. And if you search for the first world's, or humanity's first web page, you'll be able to see the link. I'll also share it with you in the course platform, which is amazing. A simple but functional web page. So that's a little bit of history of the web, and I talked about Web 1.0 and Web 2.0. Web 1.0 and 2.0 are terms used to describe two different stages in the development of World Wide Web. Web 1.0 was also called the static web, was the first generation of the web, which emerged in the 1990s. It was characterized by static web pages that were mainly used to display information. So there was no interactivity, and stuff like that. But we still have some websites like that, but mostly changed. But with Web 2.0, which refers to the second generation of the web, and emerged in early 2000s, and is characterized by more dynamic and interactive web pages that allow for user-generated content, social networking, and collaboration. And that's how we got Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook and all these. Web 2.0 also introduced mobile responsive design. Previously, with Web 1.0 in early days, or before like 2000s, when you wanted to access, for example, a web page in a smaller device, you need to scroll up and down, and you kind of zoom in and out, and then most of the devices may not have the zoom feature anyways. It was very difficult to consume web and use the web with Web 1.0. And with 2.0, we got a lot more interactivity and user engagement. As part of Web 2.0, we also like the concept of databases and storing the contents of the website into third-party databases and enabling user-generated content happened. Glad we are here, and we'll see where we're gonna go from here. There are lots of discussions and thinking around Web 3.0, but we'll see where that will take us. As I shared earlier, the internet is a global network of interconnected devices and computer networks that communicate with each other using standardized protocols, which I shared earlier. And we know that it's essentially a vast infrastructure that allows computers and other devices to connect and communicate with each other across the world. So think of internet as the streets and roads and bridges in your city. And then, so internet makes that happen. And then it's up to you if you're gonna walk to the shopping center, or if you're gonna drive to your friend's home, or you're gonna like fly somewhere. So that's why internet is very important. And we do all these websites and apps and communication using the infrastructure that internet provides. But web, as I mentioned earlier, is a collection of interconnected documents and resources such as web pages, images, and videos that are accessed via internet using standardized protocols such as HTTP, which I will explain that as well. So if you can also visually see, So internet is huge and big. One part of it is web, which we use web browsers to really interact with it. In other words, internet is the underlying infrastructure that makes the web possible. While the web is a collection of resources that can be accessed using the internet, the web is just one of many applications that run on the internet. So sometimes people may use internet and web interchangeably, like in their places, but they are not the same things. Now we know, and now we will be more careful what to use what. Of course, I mean, you can use it, but when you see someone changing their places, then you can point out like, hey, actually, that's not true. Okay. Then, so we covered some concepts around internet and the web, and a little history of the web. So now let's get into some concepts of the under the web, or some components of the web. In here, we're gonna go through a couple of items: client-server model, hypertext transfer protocol, HTTP, which I shared earlier, hypertext markup language, HTML, uniform resource locators, URLs, domain name system, DNS, web servers, and web browsers. So when someone said, okay, you know about the web, then it is kind of become natural that you also know about these. So many people, even engineers, software engineers, may read about these in their textbooks, but forgot about it. It's always nice to kind of make a good understanding of what they are, because basically knowing these are very important in order for you to get a good grasp of how web works. So let's go with the first one, client-server model. In here, when you want to access a website on the internet, your computer or any device, your phone, sends a request to the server. For example, you write google.com or bing.com. A request goes to the server that hosts the pages of that link. The server, which is a powerful computer that hosts a website, receives your request and sends back the website content to your computer. So this exchange of information is called the client-server model, where the client is your computer and the server is the website's computer. The client requests information or services from the server, and the server responds to the client's request. So it's a very basic concept and model, but it's something very fundamental to how the web works. Your phone, your laptop is the client, sends a request to server sends back the response. And that's all. That's it. And that's just that you can always like have that or this visual in mind and know and go in further detail around like, okay, how the request is being sent, how server responds back. The details we will learn more, but that's the start. Okay, and I talked about HTTP. So in here, we still have the same picture, but here is a little bit more detail. And I'll also cover HTTP here. So HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And it's a set of rules that govern how information is transferred over the internet. In simpler terms, it is a language that web browsers and web servers use to communicate with each other. For example, when you type a website address into your web browser, it sends a request to the server hosting that website using HTTP. So there should be like a language, how, for example, a browser should say to the server to give me this. They require a language. The way that I'm talking with you, I'm using English as a language, right? So the browser needs to know how to communicate in a language that the server understands. So that's HTTP. I hope now it's clear. And the server responds to the requested web page, and browser uses HTTP to display that web page on your screen. And again, to reiterate the previous slide, HTTP is based on a client-server model where the client, your browser, sends a request to the server and the server responds to the requested data. And that data which comes is in the form of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files that make up the website. In this visual, this the URL goes to the browser, is entered. The user either types or enters through the website, the browser address bar. And basically when you enter it, it's actually in the backend, it is like get this page, for example, index.html. It's like the HTTP language of talking with the web server, and web server receives it, processes it, whatever there is, sends the response in terms of HTML and CSS and JavaScript files, and it comes to the browser start rendering it, and you see it in your screen. We will repeat this thing in a couple of times in the coming slides as well. But here the context and my main thing for you to know is what Hypertext Transfer Protocol, or HTTP, is, which I hope was easy to understand. Now I talked about, for example, like, how the server responds back, and what server response is mostly HTML. And at the end of the slides, we're gonna spend a lot of time with HTML. So very briefly, HTML, or Hypertext Markup Language, is a computer language used to create web pages. Web pages are the building blocks of websites, and they are what you see when you visit a website in your browser. The HTML has structure. Just visually you can see it here to familiarize yourself, but don't worry about it. We're gonna come back to it, and actually we're gonna do some coding as well. Okay, and the other thing I mentioned, and you all know about it, hey, send me the link, send me the URL. So what this URL is? A URL, or Uniform Resource Locator, is a string of characters that identifies a web resource, such as a web page, an image, or a video. It is the address of a web page on the internet. You can think of a URL as the equivalent of physical address for a building or a house. So the same way that a house or a building has an address, some resources that exist in a server somewhere on internet has an address too, which through that you can access, and that's URL. Quickly, visually, we can look at the URL anatomy. First is a scheme, or the protocol, which can be HTTP, which can be HTTPS. HTTPS is like the secure added, which was developed later. And then www, which is a subdomain, which you don't have to write it, it's optional. And then the number 3, for example, example, that's the domain. That's unique. You can't have 2 example registered on internet, on the web. And then .com or .net or .edu are top level domains, which there's actually the top three are like .com, .net, .org, but there are like hundreds of them. And sometimes you may see colon some number, which is, that's the port. If there is no port here and HTTP, that port is by default 80. If it's HTTPS, that port is by default 443, which you don't have to worry about, but just information. And then whatever comes after that is called the path. And whatever comes after that is the query string, which sometimes is like ID 123 question mark something something question mark something something. And then sometimes you may see the number sign and some word or characters, which is like a section ID, or which is called also fragment identifier. It is a specific place within an HTML document. So this is like overall the anatomy of a URL, but the most important thing is like number 3 and number 4, which is the unique part of the domain. So if you have example.com, then no one else can have it. And if you have like codeweekend.net, no one else can have it. And actually, that is very important. Depending on where you're hosting it, who your users are, you may use different ports, and it can be HTTP or HTTPS, which something to really make sure that you know and consider is that whenever you are using a page that requires you to put your information, personal information, make sure that this HTTPS, which is like an encryption layer, and makes sure that your information is encrypted and then won't be accessed by, for example, third parties or other people for other reasons. So we covered URL 2. Now let's come to one of the really interesting component of the web, which is called domain name system, or DNS. So DNS, as I shared, stands for domain name system. It's essentially a phone book for the internet, translating human readable domain names into IP addresses that computers can understand. For example, when you type a domain name into your browser, like google.com, your computer sends a request to a DNS server to look up the IP address associated with that domain. So this happens under the hood. Sometimes we complain about like why internet is so slow, because there's hundreds of things happening, but it shouldn't be slow either. So your computer sends a request to the DNS server to look up the IP address associated with that domain. The DNS server responds with the IP address, which your computer then uses to connect to the web server hosting the website. So first request comes to the DNS. DNS says like, hey, this is the IP address. And then browser then connects to that IP. Why this is happening? Because if we didn't have this thing, then, for example, we needed to know, we needed to memorize all these IP addresses for like facebook.com or like google.com, and we had to, for example, say 12, 45, 56, 67. We had to type that all the time, but we don't need to do that because of the DNS technology. So it is very important to know. And again, as I said, without DNS, we would have to remember the IP address of every website we want to visit, which could be impractical and difficult. And yeah, let's come to the shiny part, which are web browsers. I want to do a little quick survey. If you're using actively Safari, type 1 in the chat. If you're using Firefox, type 2. If you're using Chrome, type 3. If you're using Edge, type 4. And if you're using Opera, type 5. Lots of 3s, 3 and 4, 3 and 4. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, because Edge is having, I saw someone wrote 1, 3, 4, 5. Wonderful. 1, 2, 3. Great. I think I'm also, I have Edge, but I'm not using it actively, but I am mostly 1, 2, 3, 2. Okay, 3. I see most 3. I saw someone, okay, Edge. Nice. Okay, great. Looks like most of us are using Chrome. And then after that comes Safari and Firefox, which Opera is also a web browser, which says about the market that these browsers has. Chrome, I think the mostly used one, then comes Firefox, then comes Safari, and Edge and Opera is not really that high of usage, but they are still there. And there are also other browsers like Brave and Arcade, I think, and a couple more. But these are the famous ones, and yeah. So okay, so web browsers. What are web browsers? Web browsers are software programs that allow you to access and interact with websites on the internet. They act as a bridge between you, the user, and the web server where the website is hosted. So it's like if you want to interact with that server, it's like the application that you use in order to interact with that web server and receive the content and see what is there. And the concept of, again, when you type a web address into a browser, the browser sends a request to the web server to fetch the website's files and data. Once the server sends back the information, the browser interprets and displays it in a readable format on your screen. So the browser's role is really significant in terms of as accessing and using the web. Yeah, so let's come back and let's really make sure that you know how the web works, because this is the foundation, and that's and all the things that I shared basically comes to that. And when you finish this class, I want you to be able to share to a friend and tell them what the web is, what the internet is, and how the web works. So let's repeat again. So again, the web is a system that allows you to access and share information over the internet. The web works by using a client-server model, which I shared, where your computer or phone requests information from another computer, the server that hosts the website. To request information, you need to enter or click a URL, which we covered, Uniform Resource Locator, which is an address that identifies a specific web page. If some of the terms are confusing, don't worry. It will all come together. For example, when you write codeweekend.net or google.com, that identifies that website's homepage. When you enter or click a URL, your browser sends request, which we covered in the earlier slides, how when a request comes, it goes to the DNS server. So how you actually, before you actually reach to your DNS server, you need to go to your ISP, right? Because you're using a modem, you get a service from an ISP, right? Internet service provider. It can be a telecom company, or it can be, you know, if you have internet, you're using one, an internet service provider, and that ISP has a DNS, a domain name system, which then says to you like, hey, for example, google.com or bing.com has the IP address of 204.79.197.200. Okay. Then when your browser then receives that IP, then through that IP, your browser sends a request to the server directly then, because now they know the IP. Okay. And the server then responds back with the HTML files or CSS files or JavaScript files that they're gonna come back to the browser, and browser renders it, and you see what is there. Let's go with the different examples. I found this example and I really liked it, and I think we can do that again. Let's imagine that the web is a road. On one end of the road is the client, which is like your house. On the other end of the road is the server, which is a shop you want to buy something from. In addition to the client and the server, we also need to say hello to your internet connection, because if you don't have connection, you basically will see no connection. You can't do anything, which allows you to send and receive data on the web. Your internet connection allows you to send and receive data on the web. It's basically like the street between your house and the shop. If you don't have the street, or if you don't have any path from your house to the shop, you can't go, right? It means you don't have internet. And there is this concept of TCP/IP, Transmission Control Protocol and Internet Protocol, which just have in mind, you don't have to memorize anything about this, but there are also the communication protocols that defines how data should travel across the internet. This is like the transport mechanisms that I also mentioned that let you place an order, for example, go to the shop and buy your goods. In our example, this is like a car or a bike. You use some protocols to reach there. So in internet, it's like TCP/IP. And then we talked about DNS, domain name system. And in our example, it's like looking up the address of the shop so I can access it. DNS is basically if someone says like, okay, this is that's like Bob's shop or like Ahmad's shop, but where the address is, right? So if you kind of think like Mike's haircut, that's like the website URL, but then where the address is actually the IP address for that. And then HTTP, which we talked about. And in our example, it is like, this is the language you use to order your goods. For example, either you go to the shop or you call them and you talk with them, right? You say like what you want. So that language is actually HTTP, the way that you type something and the server responds back to you. And the component files, which are the code files and the assets, that the server responds back to you. So this is all how the web works. We did the technical example, and we did like a kind of a different examples as well, which I'll share the slides with you as well if you want to come back to it. Now we covered the web and how it works and everything. So now let's briefly look at web hosting. For example, what if you wanted to put something on a web server and get others to use it. Maybe you want to do that. So let's learn about that. So web hosting is essentially a service that allows individuals and organizations to make their website accessible on the internet. Think of it as a plot of land where you can build your website. Without web hosting, your website cannot be accessed anywhere. I'm quickly checking. Safari is also one of the browsers. Okay. And there are different types of web hosting. And let's briefly check some of the really famous ones. So I'm going to repeat again, web hosting is like a land where like an area or like a place that you get where you put your furniture and you place as a house. But before you even build the house, or like before even you have you put somewhere a couch and your bed, you need to have the place. So that's the concept behind web hosting. And there are different types of web hosting. The same way, let's go with the concept of the house. Sometimes you own the house, sometimes you rent the house, and other different settings. Web hosting has different types as well. So one of the most commonly used one is the shared hosting. Shared hosting is when multiple websites are hosted on the same server. So when you get a shared hosting, and the same server that your website is hosted, maybe 1,000 other websites are hosted. So that's the reason that the resources are limited and the cost is also low, because you are sharing a resource with hundreds or thousands of other customers. There's of course pros and cons to it, which I briefly mentioned. And we have virtual private servers, which VPS hosting. And VPS hosting is when a physical server is divided into multiple virtual servers. So in the shared hosting one, a server was divided into hundreds of websites. But when it comes to VPS or virtual private server, a server is divided into multiple virtual servers. Each virtual server has its own resources, and it's as you have your own dedicated server. VPS hosting is more expensive, of course, than shared hosting, but it offers more control and better performance. And then the last one, which is very famous as well, is dedicated hosting. And that is when you have a physical server all to yourself. And this means that you have a complete control over the server and its resources. Dedicated hosting is, of course, most expensive option, but it offers the best performance and scalability. Why? Because you have everything on your hand. It's like you don't worry about changing the color of the house, or like scratching the wall or something if you have kids, because that's your own house, or that's your own hosting server. Okay, we covered domain website hosting too, but let's also learn a little bit about domains, right? As I mentioned when I was talking about URL, that the part which is called example.com or google.com, that's the domain part. Let's learn more a little bit about that. So domain names are the addresses that people use to access your website. It's like the street address for your website. We talked about it. For example, the domain name for Google is google.com. So when you type google.com into your web browser, you're directed to Google's website. And when you purchase a domain name, you own that specific web address. And it is the great thing about it, no one else can use it. So If you found a domain that you like it and you love it for yourself or for a business or for an organization, you need to register it immediately because someone else may gonna have it. But don't go crazy registering a lot of domains because they cost money. Domain names are registered through domain registers such as GoDaddy or Namecheap or Name.com. Once you purchase a domain, then you need to configure it and then put the DNS of the server for your domain so that when someone types your domain, then they can be directed to that server. So in summary, the web hosting is a service that allows you to make your website accessible on the internet, while domain names are the addresses that people use to access your website. And again, the protocol or the scheme is HTTP or HTTPS, which comes before the the first thing in the URL, and then there is a subdomain which is not necessary for you to put it, and then the domain name is actually like domain name or Shirley or Hussein, and then top level domain, it can be .com or .net or others. So the root domain, what you can register is actually the domain name and the top level domain, the name and the top level domain. So either something .com, .net, .org, or whatever you may have in mind. Okay. Now we are coming to the fun part, which is HTML. And whenever you see this logo, it is the current logo of HTML. And can anyone say why we have 5 there? Like it says HTML, but there's 5. Can anyone chat? Any guesses? Someone say it. Nice one. Version. The latest version of HTML is HTML5. So that's why the logo says HTML and 5 is in there. Nice one. Okay. So HTML is made up of a series of tags that tell the web browser how to display the content of the web page. And I'll also briefly bring the HTML page structure, which you can find it everywhere. I just brought it here to make it easy for you to see and also hear. And as you also remember in the actually here, tags, I thought HTML is made up of a series of tags that tell the web browser how to display the content of web page. And what tags are? Tags are enclosed in brackets and come in pairs. There is an opening tag, like you can see like a P tag, which is like, this is the opening one, brackets P. This is my first web page. I hope you like it. And then it's like closing tag, which the way that you close a tag is by using a slash. You have to open or you have to close every tag that you open. You don't have to always use a slash. For some of the elements, you don't need to do that, but for some, you need to do that. For example, if you use an opening tag of H1, you need to close that /H1. And the tag and the text included is called an HTML element. For example, H1, welcome to my website, H1 is an HTML element. The H1 itself is the opening tag, and /H1 is the closing tag. The content of the tag goes between the opening and closing tags. HTML tags can also have attributes, which give the browser additional information about how to display the content. For example, when we make an image, which we're gonna do shortly, when we create an image, we're gonna use a source attribute for it, because we need to let the browser know where the source of the image is. So for that purpose, we're gonna use attribute. And when you write, so this is really important, when you write HTML, you're essentially creating a blueprint for your web page, a structure for your web page. The formatting and coloring and all these are gonna come with CSS, and interactions gonna come with JavaScript, but the formatting, the way that, okay, there will be office room, there will be living room, there will be like, bedroom. So this structuring and this blueprint for the web page happens to the HTML. Okay. Great. So we are past 1 hour. We can have a 5-minute break if you all need to have a little, drink water, or like may need to use a washroom or something. And 5 minutes, actually in 5 minutes, we're gonna resume again. And I'll open my code editor, and I'll write some HTML code, and then we can do also a question and answer at the end. Okay. Okay, I think the break time is up. Hope you're all back. Okay. Okay. Now what I will do will be I will be sharing the screen in this browser. And I also share. So just to make sure, do you all have a Visual Code Studio installed into your computers? Visual Code Studio or Visual Studio Code. You can say it any way you want. Visual Studio Code. If you have it, just say yes. Okay, I got 2 no's. Okay, a lot of no's. For those who doesn't have it, is okay. Don't worry. If you have a text editor, like Notepad or Sublime Text or something like that, okay. I put the link. I just gonna share my screen to show you where you can find all these information. So in here, when you come to the home part, you will see the events, and you have something says Introduction to Web Foundations, and it's happening now. So for the next class, you will see the next class here. And if you click these items, I put the links here for you, which I put the link for Visual Studio Code and your Chrome browser, and there is a video that I requested you to watch. And you will also see that there will be 2 projects that you need to do. So for the next classes, make sure that you log into your course through one of the links that came to you, and it will be maven.com CodeWeekend Introduction to Coding, and you should be able to log in, and you will see in the homepage everything that you need to do and the upcoming sessions. And when I'm here, I want to also say that you can also write to me. You can send me messages if there is any part that you couldn't understand, you had questions, you had difficulties, you can write to me. I'll get notification, I'll respond it. And I'll also, if there is any announcements, it will come here. And for any general chats and discussions regarding the class, regarding the topic, you can do it here. I really appreciate that you all come and fill this. It is, when you come here, you will see that this field will be in the message box for you. So you can click it and answer it. It's a nice way for us to know each other. You can also post your questions publicly. If you want to direct it to me, you can just message inbox me. But if you wanted to share it so that maybe myself or others can answer, you can do it here. And we will do little projects and assignments. And if you did a great work, you can share your work here. So, so I did a little orientation of your course platform as well. Okay, as I said, if you don't have the Visual Studio Code, don't worry about it. you can write HTML in any text editor that you have. You may have Notepad, and if you're using Mac, you may use TextEdit, or basically not Word, because I don't really recommend that, because it's really not for the purpose. Something that you can write without formatting, because later we're gonna save it. Even maybe you can use Word, but I don't recommend it. I will open my Visual Studio Code and I'll share my screen again. Actually, I'll share my whole desktop, so that when I'm doing back and forth, then it shouldn't be a problem. Okay, so this is Visual Studio Code, and for you, if you wanted to download it, and I recommend for you to download it, you just need to Visual Studio Code. You just need to search it, Visual Studio Code. And when you click it, it will take you to the page. And on the left, you will see the link to download. Okay. And it shouldn't be a big file, so you can download it and you can install it. And we will be using it in the upcoming class as well. If you have a good internet, do it now. If you don't have a good internet, as I said, you can use a text editor or anything that you may want. I'll still just paste this in the chat for you all to see. In addition to here, I also put it in the course page as well from before, so you can find it from there as well. Okay, when you installed it and opened it, you will see something like this. You can see something. If you had previously open file, you can see it here. But if you're just starting now, you can I'll just make it a little bigger to make it better visible. You can just click new file. And when you click that, it will ask select type file or enter name, which I will write it as index.html. So for those who are completely new, .html is the extension for HTML files, and for the name is just common to give it index, but you can put anything. For this example, all of us, our file names, we will name it index.html. If you're using any other editors, I'll just create it here and I'll replace whatever it was before. So for some of you who are using a different editor, you may name it after or as soon as you open a file, just save it as index.html as empty file, because we're going to fill it. Perfect, Farshta. Nice that you downloaded it and you can install it and open it. Okay, so either in Visual Studio Code or in your text editor, as soon as you opened it, save that file as index.html. And let's write our first lines of code, HTML code, which then we'll be able to see in a browser. And there will be a little more fun, which I'll show, is that you can actually, after you did that, I'll show you a way that you can put it somewhere on internet, and you will actually have a link where you can show it to your friends that, hey, this is my first page. Again, I'm saying for those of you who have done these stuff before, maybe it will be something to remember or refresh your memories. But because this class is foundations, we have to cover this in order to go further. So be patient and bear with me. Okay, the first line that we need to write, and the great thing about using a code editor is actually it will give you hints about like, hey, do you mean this, right? You don't have to have everything in your mind. The first line we need to write is doc type HTML. As soon as I entered, the magic happened, and it said, I'm making it as big as possible for you all to see. Okay, I hope it's okay. So in this line, we identify the version of HTML. So in the latest version, they simplified this part. The only thing you need to write is exclamation mark doc type HTML between parentheses. This angel parentheses, or angle parentheses. That they have a name, but just call it parentheses, or sorry, brackets. Brackets is a correct word. Okay, and then we are done with the first line. We say about the version. Okay, now we're gonna start by the root element of an HTML file, which is the HTML word itself. See, as soon as I finished writing my HTML, it automatically closed it, because most of the time we forget closing the tag that we opened it. As I mentioned earlier, whenever you open a tag, you have to close it. So this part is done. We have an HTML root element started and closed it, and this is really necessary. You have to have these 3 lines there. What more we need? One of the main parts that we need to have is the head tag. And inside the head tag, we can put information about the web page. For example, we can put the title information about the page, about the web page. And for example, let's say my very first website. Actually, let me save this and open this in a browser. Okay. My default browser is Firefox. So we see nothing now. But do you notice something? The title of the website says my very first website. Actually, let me change that a bit, because I noticed I may want to like capitalize the words. Okay. My very first website. When I refresh again, I see that's being updated. So that's how, for example, you see, these titles. Or when you Google something or Bing something, for example, when you say Visual Studio Code. So this title actually comes from the title that you put here. And what happens is that these search engines, when they index your website or all those websites, they go and see and find this title tag and see what is in between. And then that's what they put here as a title. So that's why it's very important. It's an essential part of any web page that you create or any website. For example, if I don't put anything here, and if I refresh, I may see where, depending on the browser, it shows different things. But it's really necessary and important that we keep it always something here, something that identifies what this web page is about. Okay, there are other things that you can add, but the main and the most important one is a title tag. So that's really key. As you can see, as you saw, there is nothing here. It's empty. So how are we going to fill it? The way that we can fill it is through a tag called body. So the body tag is one of the most important. I know I said most important for all the parts, but is again one of the most important parts of the HTML or a web page or HTML document and web pages, because whatever visible on the web page is actually between body tags. If you put something out of the body tag, it may not appear on the page. If it appears as well, it is not the right thing to do. Okay, so whatever you want to show on the page, you have to put inside the body tags. Okay, I want to put let's say welcome to my website, and I want to put it in big letters and a heading, largest, like, you know, heading. So for that, there are a tag called H1, and it is heading 1. You know, in Word, if you have used Word document, you can select the text and you can go and select the heading or title, and you know the size changes, which is predefined already, but you can like customize it, makes it even more bigger or smaller. But as soon as you press that heading, it will get a default size. So H1 is that. H1 is the heading tag. If you want a little smaller, then you can do H2. A little smaller than that, you can do H3. If you want the smallest of the headings, you can do H6. There is nothing after H6. So there is 6 levels to it. So H1 is, you know, to structure a document, you are putting, you give one title, and then, for example, think of like writing a book, there is a title for the book, and there are like chapters. Okay, like 5 chapters. Each chapter can be heading 1, H1. And then there are subtitles under that chapter, which you can put under H2. If that subtitle has another subtitle, then you can put under H3, stuff like that. Okay, so I'll say, welcome to my website. Okay, and I saved it. Now I'm coming here and I'm going to refresh. And yes, now we have this text appeared on the page, which is the result of putting this thing inside the body tag. Okay, now we want to add a paragraph. For example, let's say, let's do H2 and say my bio, and we can see that H2 is a little bit smaller than that, and then my bio, and then let's put a bio. Let's auto-generate something. There is a concept on the web which is called Lorem Ipsum generator, which is like dummy text that you can get from these websites like this, and you can just basically bring and paste it here, which means nothing, but it will help with filling something. If you have a ready bio, you can of course put it. You don't have to worry about these breaking the lines, because if you put it in a one line or in these lines, HTML won't count the spaces. It will just show it as it is. Okay. So I put this, and the P tag is for paragraphs. So whenever you put a text, it's always nice to put inside the P tags, which is short for paragraphs. So I'm gonna open my website again and said, welcome to my website, my bio, and this is my bio. Okay. Okay, and maybe I also wanna have put a picture. How about we try that? And let's do the picture, and I will show then how we can upload this. In order to add an image, we start with the tag img. Okay, I'm just making sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, great. And remember, I talked about attributes, and I talked about how images require attributes, because we need to tell to the browser that this is an image, okay, but where the source of the image is. It means that we need to put a src, which is short for the source of the page of the image. Now we can have something on the website, but we can also use an image online. That's exciting. So let's use an image of Tim Berners-Lee, okay, the founder of the web. And we can go to the Wikipedia page, we can find him, and then we can right-click, and different browser has it too. You can right-click and you can copy image link, which is already here, but I still got it here the correct way. I copied the link, and then I can just paste it here. Okay, I just paste it here. Then for the image, I don't have to use /clues. We just need to just clues it. You don't have to write /img. For some of the HTML elements, for the tags, you don't have to clues it. And for some you have. For the image, we just put the source and then just put this at the end. Okay, now I'm gonna save this and I'm gonna refresh, come back and refresh my page. Yay, we got the picture. Actually, let's quickly change it. Let's quickly change our website to our page to a little something about Tim Berners-Lee. So for the title, I will just put Tim Berners-Lee's page. I will just put this as about Tim Berners-Lee, and I will put, or actually just put the title like that, and his bio. Okay, and for the text, I'll just grab this from here. I think one paragraph should be okay. You don't have to make a big one. And you just need to come here and paste it. I'll just need to put it a little smaller. So I'm just pasting it. Again, it came like that to make sure that you all see that. I am just making sure it's all the text on the screen. Okay. And then we have everything about Tim Berners-Lee. And then I will open here. So this is a bio, and this is his picture. So we got a little small thing. Let me know if you were able to create the doc type, HTML, head, title, body. It's okay if you don't have an image, body, HTML. Were you able to write it? I'm seeing the chat if there are any questions. Okay, so I did it, Ken did it. How we can see your website, just double click wherever you saved the index HTML, double click it and it should open with your browser. Yes. Just double click. Perfect. So many people did it. Nice. And for those who haven't, no worries. Of course, the session is recorded. You can always look at it, pause it, and you can write it, or you can find it on internet. But if you did it, make sure that you Control S, your Command S, saved it as exactly as index.html. And when you clicked it, it should open with your browser, or in your browser, open it from there. Okay. I think I'll give you all 5 minutes. For those who haven't completed, I'll give you 5 minutes and I'll make sure my screen is open. You don't have to exactly write the titles and text as I did. Just make sure that you have all these and something in the body tag between each one. Just write something. Make sure that you save it as index.html and nothing else. And then open that file or double click it or open it through your browser. Okay. 5 minutes. And if you have questions, just write in the chat. Okay. When you save it, when you save the file, make sure that you choose the desktop as a place that you save the file or your downloads folder, and then you can just go there and open it. The recording of the session will be shared on the course platform, and you will receive probably an email. It will be automatically shared. After you save your file, then you need to find that file after you saved it as index.html. You need to find that file. Okay, I think you got it. And then open it. Open on the browser. If you double clicked it and it was not opening, you can also do file. Should be a way to open it. If not, you just can drag the file into the browser. Like just make something like this and just drag the file into the browser. That's another way. Although it should automatically open. Okay, we are we will have 1 more minute if you want to wrap up, and then I'll show you how you can upload this and actually see it online, what you did, not only on your browser. For now, what you wrote and what you did, you can only see, unless you share your screen through Zoom or something. But then there's also a way for you to put that online so that everyone can see. Okay. And that will be something I'll be showing shortly. Okay. So I'm sharing again my screen, and I will be able to show you how you can do this. Okay. Let's see if any other questions. You can insert a photo from your computer by a very easy way to do that is making sure that your index.html file and that image is in the same path. For example, if index.html is on the desktop, then you can put, for example, that image that you have in the same path, it means on the desktop. And then when it comes to, let me share here my screen. And for here, you just need to write the name then. Think of like if index.html is in the same place as that image, you can just put the image here, the name here, and then save it, and you should be able to see. Like you can also, like, for example, you may have something on like, a folder in a D drive or somewhere else. You can also do that, but it gets complicated depending on the operating system. Usually the recommendation is that when you have your index.html or the page that you want to insert pictures, you can have either the image in the same path or a folder called images, and then you just need to then write images / the image name. Okay. So you can do both ways, but because we're gonna upload this online, and for this example I used an online image, because if you're working and you want to upload this, you definitely have an internet. If you want to put it somewhere, then you need to also take that image and put it there, which is also possible. For this example, I chose to use an online one because I didn't want to really deal with bringing the image with me as well on wherever I want to upload. Okay, you don't have to share anything with me. You don't have to share anything with me. I'll show you the way. You already have a project, so make sure that you do that project. The project's basically, when you did this, then you're gonna upload it and I'll show you, and you're gonna share the link. Okay, so let's go with doing that part, so we get done with that. Nice. So now I have this index.html file. Now, if you don't have, you may heard about GitHub. Some of you definitely know, some of you maybe it's the first time. So github.com is is a website, it's a platform for developers to host your codes. Okay, it is an amazing place. Even if you are not really a developer, you can use it for a lot of different ways and reasons. Sorry. I recommend you to sign up here. Okay. If you go and if you don't have an account here, you can just go github.com and you can just press sign up on the top. Sorry, there's an issue with my mouse. Oh, they're using a very first page. You click sign up there, and then you will be able to put your email and some details, and then you should be able to have an account. This is very easy. And after, actually, I'll give everyone, for those who already have an account, maybe you're not signed in yet. I'll give 3 minutes for you to either sign in or create an account. github.com. I'll paste the link. Sure. HTTPS github.com. Yeah, Soha, and yeah, just okay, perfect. I just shared. And Farishta, you just can find an image online and right click on it and copy image URL. For example, you can go and write, for example, forests. Okay. There will be lots of images gonna come. You may also wanna press the images part. You know, Google has the same, Bing has the same, and you can right click and say copy image link. Okay, copy image link. And that's what you're gonna, after copying it, you just paste it here on the SRC part. For example, if you did copy image link, it should show. Google has also a way to do that. Forests, going to images. Google probably is slightly better in this, maybe because Bing kind of like gives its own link, but Google gives you the original link. So if you open it, it opens separately. Maybe to use search forest in Google or whatever you want. Go to the image part, find an image, click on it, and then right click, copy image link. And then that's what you can paste in the source part of the image. Okay, so for those who didn't have an account, did you create an account and are you logged in? And for those who had an account, are you logged in? Can you please confirm? Say yes or no. Okay, perfect. Nice. It will be exciting. Yes, nice. Okay, I want to see more yes. Okay. It's okay if you haven't. Again, you can do it after, but I'll show you the process. Assume that you created your GitHub account and you logged in. From the top in here, from the plus where it says plus from here, or from this green button on the left, you can press new, either here or here. The main thing that you need to know about is says new repository. So you click here and it will show your name, your account here. For me, this is Jamshed Hashimi. And the repository name, you can write something. For example, I'm gonna say intro to coding day one. So this is my repository. You can say something easy. You don't have to put like, you can just say my website or something like that. But I put it this way because I have lots of repositories, and then it'll help me identify which one is which. And you can also optional, you don't have to put it, but you can also put a description and make sure it is public, because that's the way then you can share your code to some other person and they can see it. And also it's a way then you can use a service that GitHub has, which is called GitHub Pages, that you can actually then show your website to anyone. It will generate a link for you. So make sure it's public. It's by default public. You don't have to do anything else and just create a repository. Okay, perfect. So you create new repository, and then you put a repository name. You don't have to worry about the name and nothing else. Everything stays as same, and you create repository. Okay, in a matter of seconds to create your repository for you. And you can see your name on the top, name of the repository. As you can see here, it gives you some stuff here. Don't worry about all the text. You can see here there it says, get started by creating a new file or uploading an existing file. We can create a new file here, but because we already have a file, how about we click that, right? Yeah, you need to, perfect. How about you click here on the top right and you press new repository and just give a name and create repository. That's it. I'm repeating because someone asked. And when you come here, you get to start by creating a new file or upload an existing file. Click the uploading an existing file. Okay. And then what you need to do is from your computer, just get that index.html and drag it here. That's it. As soon as you drag it and upload is complete, you will see index.html here. Okay. Just bring and drag it there. It's okay if you fall behind. Don't worry about it. You can do it after, but I'm going slow, and if you want to follow it. Okay. After you did that, then you commit changes. And it says processing the file, and the file is here. So if you share this link with anyone, even if they don't have an account, I'll open a private account link here. They will be able to see what you did. okay? They don't have to have an account. Why? Because your repository was public. So, but this is not the magic yet. We uploaded basically. Now, how are we gonna make sure that we see the web page online the same way that we did it here on our computer? So for that, you go to the settings, and on the settings, on the left, you come down and there is a section called pages. Okay. Settings, you are in your repository, click settings. On the page side, on the left, this says GitHub pages. It says build and deployment, source, deploy from a branch. Leave it like that. You don't have to touch anything. For the branch part, by default, it says none. You need to select the main. Okay. Why you're selecting the main? Because by default, the code is uploaded to the main branch. You can have multiple branches. We will learn a little bit more about GitHub later, but don't worry about it. Just know that the code or the default branch that GitHub creates for you is main. And you go to the settings and go to the pages. And from here, from the branches, you just click main and keep it as this. Keep the root, because our index.html file is in the root. If it was somewhere else, we could point it, but it's in the root folder. So just change the main, nothing else, and press save. After you press save, there will be a little delay, and we may need to refresh the page. And we may need to come back and see that there's something happening. You can see this was not here, this button. And if you if you click at this dot, in the backend, our page is actually deploying to a server on the GitHub's data centers in a corner of GitHub's massive servers. So the process I said about web hosting, right? It is being now transferred into a server. It's okay, Susanna. Please take your time. You can also watch the recording again. And again, if you needed some one-to-one kind of guidance, I'll be able to help you. But all what we did was, after we uploaded it, then we came to the settings, to the pages, and just identified the main. And then what that happened was GitHub started uploading our index.html into their servers. And now what? We have a live website. That is amazing. So when I click this, I see what I was seeing on my local computer. Now I'll share this link with all of you. And now all of you can see what I did. Okay, I am the first one. Let's see if anyone else did something like that. But if you haven't, don't worry, don't be disappointed. You can, nice. You can watch the recording. I can share more instructions, but okay. Great, Farishta, you did it, but make sure that you go to the settings, as I did, settings and the pages, and make sure that the main is selected and make sure that you press save. Make sure you press save. Oh, one more thing. Please make sure that your file name is HTML because the name is different. Okay. Please rename it to index2, make it index HTML and remove the A, HTML. And the main is already here. So, but first, before that, please rename your file, index.html, and remove the A. Okay. Great. Nice. It may take around a minute for you to see the link in GitHub Pages. So after you came here and selected the main and click the save, refresh the page, and you will be able to see the link on the top. Okay. Okay, great. If you're in the process, as soon as you're done, you can share. For those who haven't or struggled with it, please follow the recording and you can do it. And then you will be able to share your work with everyone. You can come here and share your work. You can share your work and make sure that you complete the assignment before our next session starts, which we will have it by next week, Wednesday. So you have 2 projects that you need to complete. One is your first basic web page, which is making like a little page for the your favorite animal. It can be a cat, a dog, a horse, and you follow the same steps that I did and paste the GitHub Pages link. And the other thing is a little writing that you need to do. Make sure that you use your own words and not AI tools. So try to remember the class and watch the session again and try to write it in your own words. Maybe you can Google and search as well, but in your own words, explain what happens when you visit a web page. You can be as detailed as you want. Okay. Okay, I see Sohail did as well. Used a little marketing for himself, but okay. Congratulations. Looks great. Okay. For the rest of you, for those who have still time, our class is finished, but I'll be here for the next 10 minutes for those who are interested or they're already working on uploading their pages. If you ask me, I can help you with putting with the process. Yeah, I hope the session was useful for you, just to come back. And before we kind of go to question answers or you know, helping you a little more with your work, I just want to reiterate and repeat what we covered today. We covered a lot of topics about concerning the web foundations. We learned how the web works, what the internet is, what are the history of the web, what is web hosting, what's a domain, how you can get one, and we learned what HTML is, and we wrote a little HTML, and we used GitHub to upload what we wrote online. And yeah, for so many of you, I think it will be the first time that you will be doing something like that. And a reminder that the next session will be next Wednesday, and before that you have to submit your assignments. Now I'm gonna pause the